Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Toa Talk. This is the 5th episode, and we got Xav back for another week, and we also have a new guest this week. His name is Bionabot. Here, you may introduce yourself.
Hello. As you said, I'm Bionabot. My profession and hobby is voice acting. I'm in a couple of independent projects, such as Extraordinary People, Blackstone Reporters, soon to be Mob Bosses, and hopefully a couple of your projects as well, Hire.
Yeah.
I got into Bionicle around 2005, I'd say. My very first set was Hordika Anawa, and then right after that, I got Avok. So I started out getting all the brown sets. And my favorite year had to be 2007. I loved the Baraki. I think the Baraki were the coolest sets ever. And to my knowledge, they're the only ones that I got all of back when they released. And
Nice.
whatever happened to the canisters, I have no idea.
Oh,
My
yeah.
favorite set of all time, probably Vizon and Fenrak. Favorite canon character, I'd have to say Brutaka. I'm definitely a big Brutaka fan.
Yeah, he's got some depth.
You really do.
Yeah, we love those.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Too bad we never got the 2000.
Oh, you go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
I was-
No, you're good. I think there's a slight delay on our end, so no, you go ahead with that.
What was it? I was gonna say it's too bad we never got that 2007 pit mutated Brutaka. That would have went hard.
Does anyone else look at those fan edits, like the original Vorky edit, and was like, "Whoa, oh my goodness, it's real!" And that's how I felt with Brutaka.
I never found out that existed until way after G2 ended. If I'm being honest.
Vorky, I saw as a kid online. I didn't think he was real. I was like, there's no way that's a real Bionicle. Are they gonna bring back the Mata torsos? No way. But the one that they did almost get me with was definitely because I didn't know Karzani was a set until G2 came out, not gonna lie. So I was like, it was like Pit Brutaka to me, just because I've seen that picture on the internet so many times as a kid. I just thought it was a real set, and then I quickly discovered it when G2 came out. I was like, oh, yeah, that's not a real set. Okay, that's disappointing, but the edit is really cool. And honestly, it's not that hard to make that version of him. You have an extra car par, so that's always good.
Yeah, just rip apart Car.
Sure, there's an extra one out there.
I think can we all agree Car is the stockiest Baraki of all 6 of them?
Oh, sorry. I think you got a little bit muffled there. I couldn't hear you.
Is Karpar the suckiest Baraki of all 6, in your opinion?
This is a hot take I have not delved into yet because as much as last week, for the viewers who saw last week's podcast, how I kind of ripped into the Mari, my thoughts on the Baraki generally are that they're pretty good. Even Karpar, the only thing I really don't like about him is his claw, kind of funky. But other than that, I mean, his colors are really good. He's got nice pieces as well. I like his head mold. I don't really have anything bad to say about him. His color scheme's a little funky, I guess, but just kind of with the black torso. But I mean, whatever. He's fine. He's solid. I like him.
I don't think. You see, I have all the Baraki, but I haven't put them on display in a few years. They're all up in my attic in storage. Damn to the pit upstairs. I don't.
Pit. The actual pit.
Yeah, the actual pit. But yeah, I don't think he's definitely not my favorite of them. But I don't to say that he's the worst. I guess, but I still think he's a good set. He's still
everyone's tried that
yeah.
With the way that mid torso is built, just going all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got he also has the Liwa Fantaka thing where his arms are huge and way longer than his legs.
Yeah.
But I still can't harp on him that much. He's one of the few Baraki that I had as a kid, and even then I was kind of like, yeah, this guy's pretty neat. I don't know. He's definitely not the best one. In my opinion, it's either... Oh, it's tied. I really like Prydak. There's... He's also kind of funky and weird, but he works.
Yeah.
And I really like Takedox as well, because
Oh
of
yeah,
the glow in the dark
Mantis
pieces go
vibe.
hard.
Yeah, that always made him like feel like a special set. because he could do that.
There's like every time I get a lot, every single time there are, or if I split it with somebody in the Vancouver Newey server, some of my stipulations are there's 2 sets that I always every single time I see them, I'm like, I have to have their pieces. I have to.
They have fantastic pieces. I really love Antraz's blades,
Yeah.
especially.
His wings, I love his wings. I'm in the process of
I can never have enough of those wings. Those wings are literally amazing.
I'm in the process of revamping my Tridax again, and he uses those wings, and I would very much like another set of them. I think it would go hard.
No, those wings are just
Yes.
fantastic. But our first topic of the day. So every episode, for those that don't watch us weekly, at the beginning of each episode, aside from introductions, we are doing a recap of each Bionicle year as like the initial topic to kind of get things going. So today's recap year, as we go backwards, last time it was 2015. This time it's 2010. So this was the end of Bionicle Generation 1. And I will say this about 2010, it is my least favorite Bionicle year, maybe aside from 2016 for G2. It was a year that wasn't supposed to happen, and we were kind of lucky that we ended up getting it. Do I think that the sets have aged well? Definitely not. I mean, like, they all have the Avmatoran builds, which, you know, as Xav and I have talked about, like, I really love the Avmatoran builds. But they do have some pretty nice colors on them, and they had a good amount of unique molds for the clearly limited budget that they had. Like, they had like new feet pieces. They had they reintroduced the How for like a Metro head. They stretched it out a bit, which I thought was interesting. They had a brand new Rakshi spine. They had a brand new Paraka spine, which is also really cool. Great for mocks and such. But yeah, what do you guys think about 2010? How do you remember it? Like when it first was coming out that Bionicle's done, like kind of like that.
So I have a very interesting relationship with 2010. I would also like to add one more thing or 2 things about the actual builds before I go on to my memories of them. The armor piece is also new as well. Tahu and Takanuva had new armor pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They're very hard to describe, but they kind of end in like that fork point. They're in gold, red, and white, I believe. And unfortunately, the How does not fit over a Metro head. You have to really stretch it, and it's really like it will fit, but it feels very illegal. Like the sides stretch out a lot. It's designed specifically for the Avmatoran head, because I never had a red How growing up, like a proper one, but I had Tahu stars, and by God, I tried to get that thing to stretch over a Metro head, and I probably stressed the hell out of the sides of it.
That's funny. I've never heard that it didn't work on those. I've never attempted it on a Metro head, but I've seen people use it in mock, so I just always assumed that it worked. But that's weird.
It does, but like with an asterisk, like it's very not snug, and it feels you're stressing the piece. That's all I'm gonna say. It was not. Okay. But the thing about the stars is like, I didn't understand when the stars first came out that Bionicle was ending. I remember looking at the stars, and my first 2 things were, because I had 3 of them growing up. I had Nektan, Gresh, and Tahu. I got Skral. I found Skral sealed at a pawn shop in my town, like in 2017 or something like that. And I got Takanuva and Rakshi this year in between various slots. So I have all 6 stars. But I didn't understand Bionicle was ending when it came out, and I remember thinking, like, guys, the Agori build or the Avmatoran build isn't that good. I can't believe it replaced the Anika build. I thought it was actually replacing the Anika build, and I was like, and as much as I love the Ogori or Avmatoran build, I mean, I went on and on and on. I gushed about it last podcast. I was not thrilled to see it in place of what was the Anika build, and that came out of not Bionicle's ending and this is the best we could do. It was more like, really? They're retiring the Anika build for this? Like, they're not, like, they're all right, but they're not the Anika build. And I didn't clue in until I saw Hero Factory for the first time to be like, oh my god, Bionicle's over.
This is where it's going.
Yes. Until I was like, oh, it's done. Oh no, it's gone. But I think as an adult, not as a kid who didn't really know what was going on and then got really mad at Hero Factory for literally no reason.
So relatable. Yeah.
I definitely appreciate the stars significantly more as an adult because it is nice that we got something.
Yeah.
They aren't the best, but they are certainly better than nothing. And I think whereas everything from that building system is concerned, like the Avmatoran building system, so that's the Avmatoran, the Agori, and the stars, I think the stars easily have the best pieces for mocking. Easily. Like, they're so much better than anything the Agori had, and they're so much better than anything that the Avmatoran had.
Yeah.
Just, like, in general. I've seen really incredible mocks with, like, the Nektan spine and the Rakshi spine. They're really good.
Absolutely.
And
I love that Rakshi spine.
Yeah, the Rakshi spine's epic. He was the last one I got. He's pretty good. But I don't know, like, the way that I look at it is I've softened just so much on them. They're better than nothing, and I'm glad that we got something instead of what we got in G2, where they were kind of just like, hey, just kidding, it's over, guys. Anyways, bye, Ninjago.
Oh, man.
Oh, Ninjago.
So, I don't know.
When
what are your
Ninjago
thoughts?
came out, that was all I cared about everyone. As far as 2010 goes, when this was all happening, I was kind of sad, but like at the same time, I didn't even like the stars. But my very first experience with them was getting Tahu bundled with the Mask of Light movie, and that's 2010 was the first year I watched that movie. And the rest of them I got from a pharmacy. And usually I just, back then when pharmacies used to have Legos for some reason, I would just like always go look and scout around. And then you'd see like up on the top shelf, there'd be like a Bohatu Fantoka. And then I was going to go back and get it gone. But they had Nectan stars there. So I was like, all right, bet. So I had 2 Nectans in my collection. I had a couple of 2 scrolls, probably 2 of the Tahus or whatever. Because the reason I bought so many stars was because I was in denial of like Bionicle ending, so I just wanted to hold on to that feeling of buying them.
Yeah. I feel like Tahu was probably the most popular one because he was immediately the first one I went for. Yeah, he really did have I had the red one privilege.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
I immediately
So
I was really excited. I was really excited when I saw him like detached from the Avmatoran build because I was like, "Oh my god, it's the How!" And then I opened it and I'm like, "This isn't the same How."
No. Yeah, same. Yeah, I noticed
It was,
that too.
It was very much that like I was almost tricked a little bit. I mean, I probably would have bought him anyways, but I think that it wasn't just me that had that because I think as of right now, I have had 5 Tahu stars. And he seems to be the only one of the stars that I like consistently get pieces for. Like every so often I get a scrap of Gresh or I get a scrap of Skral. I never get Nektan or Rakshi or Takanuva, but like, I mean, I did once each in separate lots, and that's where my current complete ones are from. But I'm saying like, there's the Tahu star that I bought. Last year, roughly around this time, I got a really good deal on Facebook Marketplace. $50 got me a Jetrax, a Furno bike, a Tahu Stars, but only with the golden armor, and like a handful of pieces, Furno XL and some other Hero Factory I don't know, and there was also a silver Ignika in there as well. And so there's that Tahoe Stars. I had got 2 others in lots. One of them was full, and I traded it to somebody else in the Vancouver Nui server. And just as recently as last week, I found a bunch of Bionicles at Value Village. For anybody in the U.S. who might be watching, I believe that is called Savers out there. And there was, lo and behold, most of a Tahoe Stars again, and no other of the Stars Bionicles. It's just Tahoe, so I'm yet again saddled with another one. It's a good thing his pieces are good though, because I actually do enjoy his armor pieces and his feet in mocks. They're really good, and those orange legs are good for replacing them on Photok when his arms break when he falls off the shelf. So.
Oh yeah, poor Photok. He just like so.
Yeah, he's a little on the fragile side. I was very upset the other day when my Liwa took a nosedive off of my shelf and Tanma's leg broke.
Oh no. That actually, something very similar happened to mine, yeah. Like, it's always the Tanma on the back that just gets absolutely brutally destroyed.
Yep. How about you, Ben? Any other thoughts on 2010?
Yeah, so with my personal experience in 2010, I was on the internet a weird amount for being like a 9-year-old. I wasn't like chronically online or anything. So like I was 9 when 2010 came around. But I remember like being on like the space, and I didn't really clue in that it was like the last wave until like they just revealed the stars, because in the community throughout 2009 it was rumored for a very, very long time that Bionicle was going to be canceled and it was going to be ended. So the community was kind of prepared for that, and then basically they got the stars as like a bonus for like a goodbye type of thing, because it was just supposed to end with 2009, and really 2008 was actually supposed to be like the final year, but it was only selling so well, so they kept it going for another year. I don't even know if I would count 2010 as like another year, but I guess I would. So like they kept it going for like another 2 years. With the second year being 2010, it was like just 6 Avmatoran builds. Yeah, like it was just weird, because it was like, I think it was like the first like wave or first year where I was actually able to get every single set, because there was only 6 of them. They were all cheap, and I would actually be able to like save money to get them with like child income, which you can't really say for every single Bionicle wave, even though like the sets were affordable like individually. They would ultimately rack up, but with 6 Avmatoran, it was semi-reasonable to get as a kid. So, yeah, it kind of hit a little bit hard, because, again, that was just, like, when you're a kid, it's, like, one of the first times you're kind of comprehending, like, oh, yeah, like, things end. So, yeah, but I would also say with 2010, that was also the year that really encouraged me to get into, like, collecting all of the old sets, because, like, that was around the time when I was allowed to, like, look at, like, Craigslist and things like that. I would ask my friends, like, for their bins and stuff, which I got a couple bins out of just from asking around and all that. So I'm thankful for it for that, and I think I ultimately did grow to like it more after, because I took the initiative with it. It was definitely more of like me driving my passion for it, rather than like just like, oh, like, you know, my friends are like, oh yeah, we got the new Bionicles. I'm like, oh, those are cool or whatever. Definitely wasn't like that at that point. At that point, you're kind of just holding it by yourself. And we never really got that with G2. But, yeah, like 2010, again, it was just like a bonus type of year. Very easy to, like, misperceive it or misconceive it as something else. But, yeah, it was kind of an odd year. The other interesting thing is that, like, Greg kept the serials going for a little while after that. Do any of you guys know how long he kept those going for? I think it was like an extra year or 2.
I feel like it was almost
it was a bit, wasn't it?
2 years.
Kept going for a little bit.
Yeah, I think it might have been 2 years. Yeah.
It's really unfortunate that they didn't continue, because some of those serials were pretty good, and I'm definitely in the camp where I'm like, I wish that they can excuse me, I wish that they continued the Marindar story and everything. Something interesting about 2010, I was just thinking about this as well. It technically the release of 2010 fits in with the Hero Factory line.
Oh yeah.
As
Oh, I
in-
noticed that as a kid. Yeah, they had the same canisters and the same type of
Same
builds.
characters.
So
Yeah.
in the way that we'd get like 6 canister sets in the winter and then another 6 in the summer, and they were like correspondent to each other, like we'd get 6 Toa, or we got the Glotorian and then the Glotorian Legends. Like we got the stars and then we got the heroes, and even the stars canisters are like compatible with the heroes drop ship. They feel very much like the bridge between Bionicle and Hero Factory, and I'm not saying that to be like inflammatory. I mean, like, my view on Hero Factory has definitely changed to where I'm like, to where it used to be, oh my god, it's the worst thing ever, to yeah, they're all right.
That's
Yeah.
what we all collectively did. We just started to like Hero Factory. I noticed like the first wave of villains is kind of like a love letter transition from Bionicle because they
Oh,
share
yeah.
a lot of those elements.
I really wish
mean,
they
like,
kept the
uh,
villains.
Explode even has a slicer arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I will say with like the Hero Factory villains, like of specifically the first year, I really wish they kept the villains similar to that. Like, of course, like they started to use like the CCBS system and all that, and you had some really great sets out of that as well.
Witch Doctor.
Yeah, but like those Hero Factory villains were very, very similar to like what you would get out of like a Titan set for Bionicle, and that's a huge compliment, because not many sets could kind of get near that. But yeah, no, like it definitely was like a transition period. I think that's what kind of what got me angry as a kid. It's like, oh no, they're transitioning into this other thing that doesn't make any sense. It's stupid again. Like, you're a kid, so you don't really understand it.
Exactly.
And the other thing I liked about 2010, especially as an adult versus being a kid, is they actually ended the story in a
Yeah.
way that wasn't terrible or contrived. Like, I get that, because think about it this way, from the way that I kind of understand how the story or the direction that it was moving was, had the Barra Magna arc continued, Matanui, Akar, Kina, and Gresh would have, I think, traveled over to Boda Magna, and they would have met the I always forget what that Vorox's name is. He's the one that's like super smart and has the gun.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like it's Kabura. I think that's what his name is.
There
but-
was prototype Borok, wasn't there?
Yeah, something like that. And they were going to travel there, and they were going to meet the Elemental Lords, and then eventually it was going to wind up with Matanui still finding the prototype robot and uniting the planets and doing a showdown with Makuta. So we were kind of going to get that anyways.
Yeah, we were
to-
gonna get that same ending, but there was gonna be that extra year. For
Yeah,
the
which
Barra
that
Magna
extra
arc
year would have
going
been
on.
epic, and I think one of the because we had 2 more years, so one of them was going to be on the planet with like the Bionicle dinosaurs, and another one was going to be on the Red Star, which, as a huge fan of Dead Space, basically the
Same
Red
here.
Star being a Bionicle Ishimura really just like strikes a chord with me, and I'm like, oh my god, yes, I would have absolutely loved that. But what we did get with Matanui and Makuta facing down in the desert, the Mad Max theme kind of going on with all the Wastelanders, and we get some returning heroes and some new heroes, and there's a couple things that I'm a little iffy about with the story. Like, to me, I wonder if the Mask of Life was made before Tahu. If Artaka made Tahu, then how did it have the ability, or how did, because they're like, oh, the golden armor specifically for Tahu and nobody else but Tahu is programmed into the Mask of Life for Tahu. To me, that personally would have made more sense if it was Takanuva, because I think Takua was made before the Ignika, if I'm correct, or around the same time, because Takua is older than Tahu, is where I'm going with that, like, significantly older. He's the first Matoran, so I also, that's like one of the things I don't like, is they definitely robbed Takanuva of his destiny in favor of, hey, it's the red guy.
Yeah.
However, what we did get, I like how they killed off Makuta. I like how Matanui kind of said, listen, my destiny is complete. You are all free to fulfill your own destiny. He pretty much, if anybody has played Xenoblade Chronicles before, he more or less does the same thing that, this might get into spoiler territory. I'm really sorry. Maybe Ben wants to put a skip this part if you're a big Xenoblade fan because Xenoblade has a lot of crossover with Bionicle. Like when I was playing it, there's a lot of times where I'm like, "Hey, Bionicle did that like 15 years earlier," but at the end of the game, Shulk pretty much says, "The people of this world deserve to live in a world without being controlled by their god or whatever." And Madanui more or less says the same thing. He says, "My job is done. Seek your own destiny." And I mean that's kind of a cool way to end his arc, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because he was built up, and that also lends more into the sandboxiness of Bionicle, where it's like, oh well, now anything can happen because they're not really bound to their mission regarding Madanui anymore. Now they can seek new adventures and kind of find their purpose on Spherus Magna now that it's reformed. Like it. Just remember, anybody who gets down on 2010's ending, it could have been 2016's ending. It really could have been. And for that, I'm grateful for what we got, even though because I feel like even the issues I brought up with 2010's ending are kind of nitpicky, where I'm like, it should have been Takanuva, but I mean, like, it's not the end of the world that it was with Tahu. It's fine, I guess. Like, what did Gally say at the end of, like, Journey to One? She was like, now we return to our planets, and they literally did the Poochie from Simpsons.
Yeah, quite literally, yeah.
Yeah, they quite literally did the Poochie from Simpsons, and that was like, I remember watching Journey to One and thinking,
The
like,
Underworld thing wasn't half bad, though. I kind of liked the Underworld storyline that they had.
No, it was a neat idea, but like the fact that they just teleported back to their planets instead of like, it didn't properly end. And I'm saying 2010 properly ended, and for that I will be appreciative of it. Bionicle is a complete story as far as I'm concerned.
It is,
Absolutely.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm not gonna jump into Journey to One because we covered that in the last, not in the last one, but the one before that. And I really don't want to talk about G2 anymore, if I have to be honest. But
I don't blame you.
Yeah, like that was kind of back in a time when like I feel like companies would really like work hard to give either the audience or like their consumers like to give them a proper ending when they didn't have to, like when they got like shafted, you know, like they would come up with all these excuses like, oh well, you know, like we got a huge budget cut, this is our last year, we're supposed to have 2 more years. You know, they come up with all these excuses for why something's bad. And 2010, I mean, like really the only thing that people can say is like bad about 2010 are the sets, but that's only if you really don't like the Abatoran builds. And I actually like, again, like looking at the stars for what they are, they're fine. They make use of the system. They have a lot of really cool new they were new parts. And the story was concluded in a very satisfying way. And if you wanted more, you could have read the serials that Greg continued to write for another 2 years, which he then stopped. I don't know what the reason was that he stopped. I'm not sure if like Lego themselves told him to just stop pursuing the serials. But I
believe the TTV said after an interview with him is he just got too busy with his family, and also he was still working for Lego and writing the Ninjago story, so he just stopped having time for it. It's not that like Lego because Lego gave him, I'm pretty sure, complete control over the story of Bionicle after. They were kind of just like, yeah, it's done, we're not selling anything anymore, as long as it kind of stays within our rules and our boundaries, do whatever you want with it.
Okay.
And he just because remember, he was also the author for like a lot of those Ninjago books and a lot of those Ninjago stories, and I think he might have also done some stuff for Chima.
He did some for Hero Factory as well, like
yeah, and some for Hero Factory. So like, I mean, we gotta cut Greg some slack here. I mean,
yeah, I wasn't ragging on him or anything. I was just saying like. I thought it was maybe like a Lego reason that he stopped doing it, but yeah, no, I mean...
No, but like the community is always like, I can't believe he stopped. It's like, you know, the man's got to put food on the table.
Yeah, he's doing that for free. Like, he's not getting paid. He's just like doing it.
And he's got a family. He honestly couldn't do it forever. It's unfortunate that he stopped when he did, because if I'm being honest with you, I feel like he was building another good arc post 2010. I was enjoying where it was going after that. I like that Velika was, as much as people don't like that, I like that Velika was getting built up as like the next big villain, because the villain of Bionicle. If we want to say, I know Bionicle's had a lot of antagonists, but the antagonist was Pterodax. He
Yeah.
was the antagonist from the beginning right up until the end. Every other antagonist that we had was not the central threat. They were more like roadblocks in the way of the major story, or tangentially tied to him in some way, shape, or form, like the Paraka. But he was gone, and because he's gone, the story officially concluded. But I did think it was neat. I would have liked to have seen what they did with Velika. I like the idea of Marindar. Every few months I try and make a mock out of him, and it's just yeah, it is too bad, but still happy that we got something. And I think, Ben, what you said about back then companies actually cared. It's like the stars, I feel, got a lot of unnecessary hate because the fact that we got them showed us, and I know that Bionicle fans love saying Lego doesn't care about us, they don't like us, and Meso will say that, you know, Lego is the redheaded stepchild of, or sorry, Bionicle's the redheaded stepchild of Lego, and he says that, right? And I think that Lego cares about us as a community. Like the fact that they gave us,
yeah.
the fact that they gave us the stars, yeah, the fact that they
like
gave
the
us,
Easter eggs in the Monkey Kid sets.
yeah, they gave us the stars. Like the stars shows that they cared enough about us to actually conclude the line.
Yeah.
Even though it came down to like a business reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think, like, again, to kind of go back to that, like, where, like, company, like, back when, like, companies actually, like, cared, like, you just see the major disconnect between how they handled 2010. Again, like, something that was, like, rumored to end in the community for a long time. Like, basically, like, the fans that were really into it, like maybe, like, the teenagers or, like, older fans, young adult fans, like, they actually knew it was going to end at some point, like, during 2008 or 2009. They were just kind of waiting for it to happen because it was just rumored for so long. Like, they got, like, again, like, for what you were able to do without, like, completely pouring a bunch of money into it, like, it was a good job. And then you look at how they handle something like 2016 with, like, G2 and all that. It was, like, bum rushed, and I mean, a lot of the sets weren't even released globally. Like, they were only in North America or some other parts of the world, and like region locked. And I mean, I don't really care for G2, so I don't care about that too much, but I know a lot of people do like G2, and they have to pay like 130 Canadian dollars for a Kimu set, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, no, like, again, 2010, it's an underrated year story-wise. I can understand why people don't necessarily like the sets, but again, great parts that came from it. Definitely gotta look at the good parts of things that were kind of ragged on back then. I mean, you can say a lot about that, like, now, like, people really don't like the new Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny, and they're going back to Crystal Skull being like, this isn't that bad. You know, just kind of things like that. And that's kind of what we're at now, I guess.
That's actually a great analogy for it.
Yeah, because I did the same thing. Because I saw Crystal Skull once when I was, like, a kid. Again, I was like 7 when it came out. It was 2008. We had it on back when piracy was legal in Canada. My dad had it on a disc, so, like, we watched it. I was like, yeah, like, this one is, I don't know. I just preferred, like, the original movie, so I never rewatched it again. Up until Dial of Destiny came out, I waited for that to hit streaming, and I watched Crystal Skull right before I watched that one, and I was like, oh, Crystal Skull, it's not too bad of a movie, actually. And then I watched Dial of Destiny, I was like, oh my god, this is like... I'm not. This isn't an Indiana Jones podcast, so I'm gonna move on pretty quick. But you can just tell the people that wrote Dial of Destiny. It's weird because they did things that Crystal Skull did, but then did them worse, and then it actively did things to kind of, like, crap on Crystal Skull, which is also strange. But anyway, that was just a weird type of movie, and I feel like that kind of is it kind of shows, like, where a lot of, like, companies are now with, like, how they kind of handle like, I guess, like, starting something new and then ending it, or just how they handle, like, endings. Again, like, look at Game of Thrones. Anyway, but the next main kind of topic today, we'll be talking about some of the Bionicle games. And when we say the games, like, I am throwing MNOG into the mix here because it's a pretty fleshed out Flash game, but we're primarily just talking about like the video game side. What is your favorite Bionicle games, guys? What are your favorite Bionicle
I
games?
would say console. Bionicle Heroes wasn't half bad. Usually, what I do is just go into the levels and jam out to the music while I'm drawing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'd probably say Bionicle Heroes. I used to rent the PS2 copy from Blockbuster religiously.
Blockbuster.
Then when Blockbuster closed, we bought the copy from our local Blockbuster, and I had it on most platforms as well. Like I used to collect video games up until this year, so I think every version except the Game Boy version and the GameCube version. And out of all of the ones I've played, and I know that the DS and the Game Boy Advance version are distinct
Wildly
games.
different.
Yeah, but I'd say that out of like the console/PC versions of Bionicle Heroes, the Xbox 360 version's probably the best one. It runs at the highest resolution. It's native 720p, where I think all the other ones are native 480. And you get to use that controller. The Xbox 360 controller is really nice. But I have to say that probably the best thing about Bionicle Heroes, the absolute best thing, is kind of like what Bionabot said. The soundtrack is killer.
Mm-hmm.
It is way better than it has any right to be. And I understand that Bionicle Heroes isn't canon, like how we have Villain Axon, which
Yes.
even as a kid, and I was slightly detached from the lore, like ever so slightly, because I wasn't a strong reader, I knew enough to know that like Axon's the good guy.
Yeah.
And Rekka, Nadiki, and Sidorak are dead. Why are they all
this is
here?
a little weird.
Yeah, literally the
and
first
Hockey,
boss
I think,
fight.
too.
Yeah, literally the first boss fight is Rudaka. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be here.
At least like with Rudaka though, maybe they made her the first one intentionally because like she's actually still alive, and it exists in the timeline at that time, not to like give fans whiplash of like, oh yeah, by the way, Axon's a villain in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I like. So, okay, quick lore question, if you remember. I don't quite remember. Like, when Web of Shadows came out, a lot of people I know were under the impression that she died, and I was kind of like, oh, well, I don't know if she died or not. Did people know in 2006 that she was alive? Like, did Greg actually say that she's alive, or was that like a later reveal in like 2007
I thought she
or
definitely
something?
died in the movie.
Yeah,
Where she just flopped on the ground.
yeah, like her highlights like go out, like she just looks like
Yeah, what are
she's
you supposed
dead.
to think? What are
Yeah.
you supposed to think?
I feel like that was definitely a big retcon, just to kind of keep her around. But I mean, what they did with Federation of Fear was cool, so it's definitely
I
not
was about
like,
to bring that up next. I thought she was in that.
yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know when they, yeah. So I feel like in 2006, like again, and that's if Greg put this in a book or something that like, oh yeah, by the way, she just got teleported somewhere else through the Shadow Hand thing, and then whatever. I feel like a lot of people, like at least like the casual fans, again, like you kind of have the same thing with like Sidorak and like Nadeka and Creek, or I got the names mixed up. With like Kreka
Nadeka, not
and Nadiki, like it's like, oh yeah, these guys are supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
I'm also surprised that like Ernak wasn't a boss fight. Again, it kind of shows to a certain degree like how, I guess, last minute that exclusive set kind of was, where he was just a combiner, and it's like, oh yeah, well, to make him worth buying, we'll throw in a gold Paraka spine, some gold tubes,
Or Umbra.
or Umbra even.
We
Yeah,
didn't get Cardaz. Why wasn't Cardaz the final boss?
Yeah, that's
that's unfortunate. Yeah,
Bionicle Heroes has a like. Here's kind of the thing that I've learned about Bionicle Heroes throughout the year. It's one of those things where if you look at it in isolation, it's really good. Like it's a good Lego game. I think that Traveler's Tales, if anybody's familiar with Traveler's Tales or TT games, I think that they're called now, they kind of have a bit of a spotty record where video game development is concerned. I think that they almost exclusively do the Lego games now, but like historically they've done Crash Bandicoot, Wrath of Cortex.
Transformers
They've done Sonic R. one of the worst Sonic games that has ever existed.
Yes.
They kind of there's some other ones as well where they've done that have kind of been like middling quality as well. But I'm ragging on them, but they have also had good games too. But like the fact of the matter is, for a Traveler's Tale game and for a Lego IP game, because from my limited knowledge of some of the other Bionicle games specifically, they kind of delve into a little bit of wackiness territory where they're a little bit more on brand of Lego than they would be with the Bionicle story. And like Heroes does that too. You have the Paraka Playground and everything. But yeah, the Paraka Playground, that thing is that is a trip.
By the way, all the dialogue being grunting, how do you feel about that? They just go.
I feel like that's very on brand with Lego, if I'm being perfectly honest.
They made that game like right after the very first Lego Star Wars game, while they were also co-developing Lego Star Wars 2. So a lot of the humor and all that just got translated over, because I guess Lego Star Wars 1 was a really good hit. I mean, I remember owning it when I was a kid. And I guess they were like, yeah, do that, but like with Bionicle and make it a shooter. And they're like, okay.
They all fall apart in the cutscenes. They're like, oh,
yeah. Again, for what it is, I do like it for that, like as its own like separate thing. But obviously, like a canon game would require a lot of exposition cutscenes, similar to Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, if you look at it in canon, it's garbage. If you look at it in isolation, like the graphics are decent for the time. They're like, as far as a PS2 GameCube game goes, they're on par with most of the higher end titles. Like it looks pretty good. The soundtrack's killer. The gunplay. Funny, I have to say gunplay in a Bionicle video. The gunplay is good. Like all of the guns feel really good to use. You can tell that like they're actually different guns. Like you have Huki's rocket launcher. You have Nuparu's grenade launcher, Matoro's sniper rifle, Kongu's shotgun, Hali's machine gun. Like they're like that's actually just what they are.
I know, that's hilarious. I was really surprised as a kid that like there wasn't like a melee function with the sword and that you weren't shooting with the Zamaspheres. I was surprised by that as a kid. I will say that.
Yeah, that's that is a little on the funky side. But there's other things in Heroes too that's also just like nice little touches. Like all of the Anaika's weapons are the meta weapons when they start out, which is kind of neat and interesting. It's neat to collect all the different masks. It's neat to buy things from the store. It's neat to look around the world, and Voya Nui looks great. I'm not gonna lie, it looks really good. It looks really fleshed out and wonderful. I think the only complaint I have for it as a game is that the hero mode thing is kind of, that theme gets old really fast for as good as the soundtrack that game has.
Especially when it, like, the mode doesn't stop until you build the gold model. So you're just like gonna listen to that hero mode theme the most.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's, as a game that's tangentially related to the Bionicle IP, if we don't include MNOG, I would confidently say it's probably the best Bionicle video game we got.
Hands down, hands down. I love the vibe of it. And again, like even if it's not like lore wise connected, that's fine. Like I get why they wouldn't do that. And like whenever I play that game, it's always just fun to play it. But like I will say, it's even for Lego game standards, like it's way too easy. Like you basically can't die. Like
turn your brain off. Yeah,
you quite literally turn on your brain off. Yeah, you can always grab a spare mask, and if you are like really horrible at video games, like if you just stand there and just like take like 20 Tortuga spinners to the freaking face, and then you do somehow get a game over, that's because you're purposefully trying to get a game over. You're just you're that bad at video games.
I've never had a game over. I'm like too impatient. I'm just like, okay, get to the end of the level, please.
When you do die in that game, though, I'm pretty sure your head just blows right off, though.
Yeah.
Because you notice, like in the cutscenes, when you defeat the Paraka, you literally pick up their head and you start playing with it.
Yeah.
Heroes is great. I do love like the little like weird bits of violence that are in it randomly.
Yeah,
Kind of seem out of
it
place.
almost got a T rating.
Oh, the DS game is rated T.
Yeah, no, that's funny. Like the console version also almost got rated T. I think I don't remember the reason for it. I think it was for a function that they had to actually cut out.
Because
to-
the Paraka rap is too edgy.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. But yeah, no, I really, I don't know, the details, like, you can tell that, like, either the, like, people that were actually involved with the main Bionicle team, or, like, people that just really, like, took their time of, like, putting effort into the game. Like, they really, paid their dues, like, with putting, like, just great details in there. With, like, the collectibles you can get, and, like, they'll give you like bits of the lore, like things that are actually accurate to the lore, but then when you're playing the game you're like, this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, no, it's just it's kind of like a weird love letter to itself, even though it is made by like Lego and all that. Like it's a good love letter to like those first like 6 years of Bionicle. Definitely.
It's also very much like the junk food of the Bionicle IP.
Yeah.
Like it tastes really good, but there is no substance.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, 100%. Oh. I mean, like, again, like, it's fun. I love playing it on the PC, because the PC version, it's not technically piracy, but like, you can just download it for free off of, like, Biomedia Project or any other, like, website that you can just download the PC version and run it in, like, as high quality graphics as the game can basically take.
I think natively it's set, like, if we're talking what the best native version is.
Yeah, the best
the
native
Xbox
is definitely
it's the
360.
Xbox 360, but like
Yeah.
if you want the best version for optimization, it's unquestionably the PC version.
Yeah, and what I do like about the games is that like they're because with like some other like ports to other consoles, you can notice like pretty big like downgrades in either graphics or performance quality. That game's pretty well optimized across the board. It wasn't on the PS3, even though it did come out in 2006 when the PS3 came out, but I guess just the PS3 is hard to program games for, infamously.
Yeah, it was the PS2 was still selling more units than the PS3 was back then, because you have to remember when the PS3 came out, the backwards compatible one was like I think 599 Canadian dollars.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it came out, and versus a PS2 was like maybe 200 or 150, like the PS2 Slim. It was not an expensive console. So, but the Xbox 360 was only like $299.99 or something like that. So, the fact of the matter is, with what a lot of game companies did back then, and this isn't exactly an uncommon thing, Heroes is just one of many examples of this, is you'll see a lot of games come out on the GameCube, the PS2, and the 360, and that's because the PS2 is still selling more than the PS3. The 360 came out in 2005, so the original Xbox was already dead and buried by 2006. So it made sense to put it out on the 360 because it had an install base, and it made sense to put it out on the GameCube because the Wii also came out in 2006, and the GameCube had an install base, even though there was a Wii version of Bionicle Heroes, which I think might have also come out on the same time. But the reason why that could also be is because the Wii and the GameCube are extremely similar in architecture.
Yeah,
like, they are
definitely.
almost the same console, almost. There's very little difference in how they run and work, so it would have been really easy to just, like, for Traveler's Tales to just make Bionicle Heroes on the GameCube and then tweak like a handful of things, and immediately they have a Wii version.
Add those motion controls.
Yeah, and honestly, the motion controls are good in third-person shooters.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
I have the most experience with the PlayStation 2 version, but I've also played the Wii version a lot because in my head as a kid, I was convinced that the Wii had superior graphics to the PS2, even though it really didn't. I just thought because it was newer, it was therefore better. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of third-person shooters that went on the Wii, like Resident Evil 4, for example, got a Wii port after the GameCube version. Benefits significantly from those motion controls. Like, it makes the gunplay even better. Like, I'd say that the best playing version is probably the Wii version because you have so much freedom over where your shots go and movement and whatnot. Yeah, still not the prettiest version or the most optimized version, but it's one of the more fun versions to play. I would highly recommend the Wii version. It's only like a $5 Canadian game. It's really easy to come by and find.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that for the Wii. I grew up with the GameCube version. I still kept my GameCube version since I was a kid. So like years ago, like probably back in like 2016 or 2015, I was able to like actually run it on my Wii by buying a GameCube memory card. But yeah, no, it was fun to do that. And yeah, no, Heroes is definitely the best console Bionicle game. I've dabbled very little in. I have them on my phone, but I have like the Game Boy Advance ones. The only one I haven't played is Maze of Shadows.
Wasn't there a Heroes port for mobile?
A Heroes port for mobile, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like I might have read that. Yeah.
For the Nokia or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the music got archived though, but everything else is gone.
Yeah, that was crazy. Before we move off of Heroes, though, I will say about the DS version because I did also play that one a lot.
It's Doom but Bionicle.
Yeah, it is Doom but Bionicle. It also kind of slaps in an entirely different way than the console versions. Like it's a first-person shooter. The controls are a little funky, but once you get used to them, it plays reasonably well. And the music's good. The boss fights are good. It's a fully 3D game on the DS, which was not the easiest thing to do on that hardware. And the frame rate never chugs. It's rated T for some strange reason. You play as a mystery character who is just the Zammer's Fear Launcher. It's the cheats were really fun.
It's like a silver Toa Nika is the character, and I built that as a mock. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a weird little guy, and you just kind of play as him. I don't even know what his mask is, but it's Heroes on the DS. Would also recommend. It's a good time.
Yeah, I have that loaded up on my R4. That because I would play some hacked Pokemon games on my 3DS with the R4 device. Don't tell Nintendo that I told you guys that. But it's I think I dabbled a little bit in it, but I never actually played it. But yeah, no, Heroes is great. But have you guys played the Game Boy Advance ones?
So
outside of literally Adventures, right?
Outside of literally today, because before the podcast I went to a game store. I was just kind of had nothing to do, so I went to a game store and I bought self-titled Bionicle and Matoran Adventures. I had never played any of them except for Maze of Shadows. I actually had Maze of Shadows new as a kid, and I didn't really understand how RPGs worked. So I remember thinking it was really dumb and bad because I kept missing all the battles and I was super underleveled and I never beat it. But I feel like as an adult, I'd probably like it better.
Yeah.
That one's actually
I like the Mantis
canon
build.
story
Probably the
too.
Mantis was my favorite one to fight because I just liked looking at the Mantis enemy.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Isn't Maze of Shadows about like the Marguzak?
Yeah,
It is
okay. So
bit. Yeah,
it's
I think
like
so. I think there's some.
Yeah, it's the prototype for the Marbazak, or however you pronounce it. It's actually called the Karzani plant, named after Karzani.
Foreign Adventures is because it's like it just seems like a.
I think you're cutting out a little bit. Matoran Adventures is actually canon. It takes place like right before basically when you end the game, like you summon the Toa. As far as I'm aware, it's still canon because people have referred to it when talking about like the timeline and stuff. Like I think even the Duckbricks video, he mentions the ending when Takua summons the Toa.
Doesn't Takua get amnesia again?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think originally I think this is just my theory. I don't know if anyone knows otherwise, but I think maybe originally he was supposed to be a different character, and then they just made him the same character from MNOG, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Let's just make him have amnesia again.
Did you know about
when
games? when they did like the first Bionicle movie, they were gonna have a human child.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that
so
humans
glad
should
they
not be
did
in Bionicle. They should not.
I guarantee you the line would have been over by 2004 if they did that. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, 2003
It would be.
would have literally been the last year like it was originally planned to. If they freaking did that. This
And then the kid
podcast would
Cassie
not
probably would
exist.
be like, "Oh, I'm known as the reason that Bionicle ended. People hate me."
Yeah, the few fans that got into it from 01 to 03, like, damn you. No, no, but like,
that would
oh
have been
god.
that would have been actually.
They're just always banging on his door, even when he's like at the age of 30, just like, "You look at what you did."
You got Callan and IDS and Xav just knocking on his door. Hey,
Yeah,
you robbed us of what could have been one of the best Lego themes of all time. Like,
Yeah, really.
Who remembers Robomaniac 7? Robomaniac 7 was one of the first
Oh,
BioTubers
yeah.
I ever watched.
I was actually talking about him today with someone in a part of the Ignition team, but yeah, he's an OG. His videos are legendary. The kids getting killed at Walmart or whatever it's called video was
Yeah,
like
amazing.
that may have been the first Bionicle video I saw on YouTube.
Oh yeah, for me it was an AMV of Going Under by Evanescence. And,
Yeah,
just had
there's
Todd picking up his mask on the beach.
Move Along may have also been another first video on YouTube for me for Bionicle. Don't quite remember what my first YouTube video was, but
I saw. So I've never played the self-titled Bionicle game. I had Scholastic published it on CD-ROM, at least here in Canada, and I had that, and my computer's specs back in the day was not good enough to run it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that floating around forever, but I watched some cutscenes of it online. Because you're speaking of YouTube videos and Bionicles, and that's the only gameplay of like the self-titled, like the one with Takanuva on the front of it and the Crocon in the background.
Mm-hmm.
That game has some weird stuff about it. So
Yeah,
it was developed by EA, I'm pretty sure. Like,
I believe so.
that's kind of funky to think that. Just, I want everybody to think about this for a second, because like Bionicle right now is kind of, I'd call it kind of niche, kind of obscure.
I definitely call it niche. Very
like there's
obscure,
definitely there's definitely people who are still into it, and there's a lot of people who are still into it, but it's not. I wouldn't call it mainstream. I wouldn't call it like one of the most beloved IPs of all time. Just there's like a small-ish but solid group of people who really, really love it. And you have to understand that back in the day, Bionicle was enormous. Like, it was. I just kind of accepted that it was like huge back in the day when you'd see like McDonald's toys and you'd see the All-American Rejects, like an actual band.
Yeah.
Sponsored with them. And then you think like EA, you think, oh, EA, one of the biggest publishers and developers ever, like one of the big name ones.
They made the first
Published and made
few ones. Yeah, they made the Game Boy ones too.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
published and made Bionicle games. Like, how crazy is that? Like, EA, the people who publish Mass Effect, who publish all the FIFA games, who publish Dead Space, who, own the rights to, like, what is it, StarCraft and Titanfall and all of that. They did Bionicle.
Yeah.
The
Wild to think how big it was.
that you just described is what they did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that they don't have Bionicle's rights now. But
Microtransactions. Pay $5 for a HOW in game.
yeah, no, precisely. Yeah.
Like
No,
absolutely. Bionicle and Fortnite win.
oh yeah, the Bionicle skins in Fortnite.
But like, that's kind of crazy to think. But that game has weirdness in it. Where I'm going with that. So I'm pretty sure that it covers the first 3 years of the Bionicle story. So Takua's voice is ear grating in that game.
I heard like a few clips.
You
Oh god.
do it, Takanuva.
Yeah, I don't know what. Like, I mean this with no disrespect to the voice actor. I never mean that with, because it's never the voice actor's fault. It's always the director's fault.
Always
I agree.
Yeah. But like the voice, Takua's voice is crazy in that game. Why they don't have Godok and Kodok as enemies in the Borok arc, like as the boss? beyond me.
They skip over a lot in that game. Like it's kind of they quite literally speedrun it, and then they cut out a lot of events. And the
It feels
designs,
very rough.
yeah, it was 100% rush. And the designs are odd because they're not like the Miramax designs, and they're not the set designs. They're like another weird. It's like
Yeah.
another weird Miramax approach, kind of, but then like they just look a little bit even more kind of
They
odd.
do
Like,
they look like Transformers Beast Wars a little bit like Transmetals kind of. Well, which makes sense, Scott McNeil, but
yeah,
kind of gives me those vibes.
yeah, a little bit, yeah, like because like the Toamata and I think even the Nuva, like they would have like the Mata hands of like two fingers, like it was.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that.
I think as like in like a set form, like I've seen mocks of it, specifically by I think I don't want to butcher his name, but I think Bukkey, Bukkey. He made a Takanuva mock based off the game one, and it looks amazing. Like it's definitely the best Takanuva mock I've ever seen. But like it works as like a set, but they kind of again they combine like the worst elements of the Miramax designs, even though I quite like the Miramax designs. Like they combine like the worst elements of them into like a weird other approach to it. I can't quite describe it, but they're weird. And from what I've seen gameplay wise, I'm actually surprised I haven't played this one yet. I think I've just been putting it off for so long. The levels, like they're it's like a strange platformer. It's not like Heroes where it's like a shooter and like completely change everything to like to be more like a traditional Lego game, because that game came out before like Traveler's Tales did like Lego Star Wars, where they came up with a more traditional Lego format going forward from that. So they were still experimenting with a lot of weird kind of stuff. Like there was actual voice acting, but they weren't by like the film voice actors, and
Not at all, you could tell.
yeah, and again, I can't help but notice like why some of the designs look the way they do. Like Chiraga Vakama looks very demented in those games. He looks great in the movies and the set. You know, like say what you will about like the outdated like Technic skinny kind of look, but he's horrifying to look at in that game. Takua has like his face from the movies, so like they clearly did some like slight touch ups or redesigns when the movie was coming out, or maybe the game was so rushed.
They look like
but,
they look like the Tohunga, like
yeah, I will say that. I guess they were more accurate to the Tahunga, but they also just looked odd. They just looked weird. But yeah.
With Mask of Light, the like Matoran had these weird organic bellies, and they look like grapes.
Yeah, the little six packs.
Yeah, the six packs. That's how they're such good Coley players. They're all jacked and ripped.
There's some strange decisions, like a Nokama, like Taraga Nokama's like fucking like drawn on cleavage.
Yeah, the drawn on. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
somebody in the server pointed that out to me for the first time. I never noticed.
It's a water symbol. For all this time, I thought it was a water symbol.
I thought, yeah, when I was a kid, I thought it was that too. But then, like, I think I was like a teen, and I was watching. I was like, did they try to draw boobs onto her? Like, what? Like, it's just weird. And she's the only Chiraga with like a chest like design on it, and it's like she's an old lady. She does like what? Come on, bro. Like,
there's a few bro moments in the Bionicle movie that would be a good topic for another podcast.
Oh yeah, we'll get to the movies later.
But the Mask of Light video game, or whatever you want to call it, that one is kind of, oh god, I see a picture of Vakama right now from the game. Yeah, he's kind of horrific looking. I'm not gonna lie to you, but where that game is concerned, it's very much like of its era.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of the other video games from that time period, a lot of them are 3D platformers, more or less collectathons. Like, you had two kinds of 3D platformers back in the game. They were back in the day, you had Super Mario 64, or you had Crash Bandicoot. Those were every platformer that was 3D and on a console back then heavily borrowed from the design philosophy of one of those games. There wasn't really like not a lot of them had their own personality, and I feel like Bionicle, Mask of Light, we'll just call it that to differentiate it from the other one on the Game Boy. It kind of is that, and that's, I think if we look at it in the time period, minus the weirdness, like the Fakama model and the voice acting,
Yeah.
it's also it's not bad. It's just kind of mid. Like, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not underwhelmed by all the gameplay I've seen by it. I'm just kind of whelmed. It exists, and it's not particularly bad. It's not particularly good. Oh, the last thing I'd like to say about it, I did watch the beginning where like the Matoran are putting on a play for the Toa. And
Yeah, I've seen that.
very cursed, and Kopaka's like sitting there cheering and like hooting and hollering, and I'm like, that's so not his character.
Not him at all.
Man. Yeah, I almost wonder if like the designs they had for the game were the designs from like the other company that was supposed to make the movies before Miramax stepped in, because there was that like test animation that came out, and they look more like that, except those ones actually look more like the sets and look a lot better than the game designs. But it just looks to me like they blended like the sets, Miramax, and that other company that was supposed to animate the movies like designs into one big like demented looking kind of thing. Because like the other thing is too,
Like a praying mantis, kind of. Like,
Yeah.
whenever she like moved her arms, it was like a mantis. It was really creepy.
yeah, and like I'm looking at, like Takanuva's model right now. It's almost like he has like biceps with like his like with like the hose pieces or something. It just looks weird. I don't like the designs they went with that game. They should have just either done the Miramax ones or just straight up the sets. That would have been even better. Yeah, again, I never played that one. The only level I've seen like in full is like the final boss fight, and it's a pretty underwhelming final boss fight. Makuta is like 10 times bigger than he is in the movie, and you're just like jumping across platforms, and then you get up to Makuta, you do one hit, and he sends you back down, and you just keep climbing up the platforms again and to do the same thing. You can argue whether or not it's better than the weird Coley match they had in the movie, but anyway. The Matoran Adventures or Tales of the Tahunga one, I don't mind that one too much. I never completed it, but I've got some good progress of it on my phone.
The thing I'm gonna point out about the Mask of Light video game real quick before we move on to the Game Boy ones.
Yeah, sure thing.
Just a good appreciation for Heroes, like how I said that Heroes had like pretty good graphics for the time. So you have to remember, Heroes and the Mask of Light video game were developed for the same platforms.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Like, they're both PS2, GameCube platforms. That's the exact same hardware. It is night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Heroes looks like it is from the 7th generation.
Yeah.
Versus whatever the heck is going on with the Mask of Light game. Like, I'm looking at a model of Tahu right now, and then I'm looking at a model of Jala from Heroes, and I'm like, they're not even comparable. Heroes just looks so much cleaner and nicer.
And Heroes also ran a lot better, because I've seen, again, more gameplay of what I've watched back in the day of Mask of Light. It's just like it just looks slow, like almost like if you're running it on like, because I've had this where I've been playing like games on a PS2 emulator. Like I was like the first time I played Metal Gear Solid 2. Some of the cutscenes would slow down a little bit, but it wasn't like too bad like as like a cutscene, but like the gameplay wouldn't slow down. But like I noticed like it was just kind of like slow processing as a game with like that Bionicle. Again, I can't speak as this as like a reviewer because I haven't technically played the game, but just from what I've seen, like it definitely wasn't well optimized to like what Heroes was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely a night and day difference. But yeah, the Tales of the Tahunga one, like that one's not bad.
Is that the first one, or is that Matoran Adventures?
That's Matoran Adventures. I think that was like the first game, if I'm not mistaken. But that one's not bad. You can customize your character, even though he's supposed to be Takua. But you can customize it to like any color Pakari or any color torso or legs you want, and you can name your guy. I just do the Takua thing because that's who he's supposed to be. But yeah, that one's like the first like few zones of the game are pretty easy to get through. Like I will say, like, the difficulty, I guess, just because, like, of how things have aged or something, like, it's a pretty normal, like, difficulty for a game, I will say, even for, like, a kid's game. But it does kind of get, like, weird, gimmicky, and annoying with, like, the mechanics of, like, how you have to, like, jump across the water by using, like, your grappling hook or something. It's really strange. But, again, like, that's... If I was a kid in, like, 2001 getting into Bionicle, I would definitely be grinding that game a lot, and you learn a lot about the story. Or just, like, I guess just the world of, like, the island of Mount Nui at that time. And, yeah, like, that one's okay. Have you guys played that one or no?
And I get, so here's the thing about the Bionicle Game Boy Advance games. Up until actually this year, I only thought that there were 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that there's 5. I only thought there was Maze of Shadows, the weird port of Heroes that I've never seen any gameplay of. I don't even think I've ever seen one in person. And remember, I collected video games for 12 years. I
have a copy.
Seen a lot. I would very much like a copy eventually one day. I mean, I asked for it at the store today, but they only had Matoran Adventures and the Mask of Light one. But I am still confused. Is this the platformer one? That's Matoran Adventures?
Yeah, it's a 2D platformer, so like it would it's like a top-down type of platformer.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at I haven't seen much of the gameplay for it, but looking at the graphics, like, they look nice as far as Game Boy Advance standards are concerned.
Wait, is this Matoran
like how
Adventures?
the eyes shine behind the mask.
Yeah, Matoran Adventures is the platform.
Oh wait, okay, hold on. What I described earlier, I think was the one I described earlier was Tales of the Tahunga.
The first ever one, the first one I'm looking at here just says Bionicle and it has like Onipu on the cover.
Yeah, that was supposed to be Tales of the Tahunga, but they had to rename it because of the lawsuit, I think.
Yeah, this one's like top down.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. I have played.
Oh yeah, okay.
I have played Matoran Adventures like a bit. That one I think is even more kind of weird and gimmicky with like the models and stuff. I'll get into that one later.
Yeah, we're talking about 2 different games then. I mean, the graphics. I guess I'm looking at the graphics of it right now of the original one with Onipu, Tales of the Tahunga. They're okay, I guess. I mean, it kind of
reminds me of a PC game like from back then. Just looking at it.
It has if anybody's familiar with the Super Nintendo, it has like the Mario RPG look to it, where the background's pixelated and it kind of looks like they bit crunched some 3D models.
Oh yes.
I'm not crazy into that aesthetic in particular. Pixel art is my favorite where video games are concerned, and when we eventually get to Matoran Adventures, the 2D platformer, the one thing I will say about it, because I have almost nothing else of substance to say about it, the graphics look really good. Like I was just saying previously, for Game Boy Advance standards, like, that's some nice pixel art happening there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say about it. Is it canon? That'd be my question.
Yeah, that's the one that's canon, where you play as Takua and you summon the Toa. I don't know how much of the game is technically canon, but like I know like like events from the game did happen in canon. It's one of those things where it's like it's a video game, so some parts might not be 100%. Is it an RPG? Not really. I mean, like you technically you make your own character with Takua. You could just play as Takua, or you can change how what color he looks like or his name. But it's basically like you go around the island and you free all the Chiraga, and then I think you summon the Toa at the end. But yeah.
Wasn't it supposed to be the companion to the canceled Bionicle PC game that we were supposed to get? Like
yes. I think it was supposed to be like a prelude to that.
Yeah, that's I think that game got unearthed eventually, didn't it? Or like a demo of it?
You can download it now. They made like a playable build of it.
I know that.
Crazy.
Yeah, I gotta play that one day.
Yeah.
So that's I guess that's kind of all we have to say on Tales of the Tahunga, or just Tahunga, Bionicle Tahunga, or just Bionicle.
Bionicle Haktua, yeah.
Yeah. But Matoran Adventures. So when you first played the game, you're like, okay, these graphics are pretty good. But I will say they get lazy with the sprites real fast. Like you play as Jala first, I think, and then so everything looks pretty normal. But then you get to like the Kongu mission, and it's just a recolored Jala in Kongu's color scheme.
Yeah,
And
I'm looking
They
at this
don't
right now,
even
and
change up the Taraga, do they either?
no,
It's-
it's just Nokama, but
it's
she
green Jala and green Nokama.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
green
looking at right
Nokama.
now.
So like again, like the sprites themselves aren't bad. It's just the fact that like they got super lazy with that. I don't know what the reason was. And same with the Borak. The Borak also get recolored, so like their shields are different and all
Which
that.
I mean, fair because the sets did that. I don't know if the shields did that in game.
You know, I mean, like
Green
the
Tannock
shields
isn't
would.
real, he can't hurt you.
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. Like the shields themselves are like different colors, but they're not the different shields that the sets would have. So like that one is okay. Like that one, honestly, like maybe it's because it's the emulator I've played it on, and I would have a better experience on like a legitimate Game Boy or maybe on my computer or something. That one, I feel like it just gives me a headache after a while. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm done. Like
All
every
I'm
time I
saying,
play that.
Ben, is my GameCube has HDMI output, and I have the Game Boy player.
Oh hell
Let's
yeah!
play of
Let's play.
Matoran Adventures on the channel.
Yeah, perhaps we can do that. But yeah, that one's like okay. I don't have anything to say about Maze of Shadows. I know like that game is like the most canon game of them all, and
The graphics in that one, I think, out of all of the Bionicle Game Boy games, that one easily has the best graphics. Like the sprite
Yeah,
art
I would
is
say that.
on point, and I remember the sound effects being really nice. What a lot of people in like the retro game community, and it absolutely hurts me to my core to say, yeah, retro game.
oh
Bionicle
yeah, I
Maze of
know.
Shadows.
Yeah,
You know,
that's weird.
20 years old, and when Bionicle Maze of Shadows came out, the NES was 20 years old. So and we still called it retro back then. So, like, so
We're getting old now.
yeah. So Maze of Shadows is retro, but like I'm just reminding myself of some of the graphics here. Like they had nice, like the enemies were nice. They were, I think, from like not the Dark Hunters, but the Rahi book, and some of them I think were just mocks, and they were like really nicely implemented. What a lot of people in the retro game community enjoy about pixel art games, especially older ones like from the Super Nintendo, Sega Saturn, Genesis-esque, like games along those lines, people say that sound effects have to be crunchy. And I think that the sound effects in this game are very crunchy, but in a good way. Not in like a bit crunched way, but in like a satisfying, yeah, I heard the disc slam into that guy
Yeah.
way. It's the sound effects are nice, the graphics are really nice. I don't remember how it played as an RPG. I just remember being too stupid to understand it when I was a kid, and I had a very under-leveled Vakama, and he would always die in one hit in some of the final areas. But there's probably something that can be improved of it, but I think it's also kind of just run-of-the-mill as far as Game Boy Advance RPGs are concerned, and that's a pretty hefty title to contend with because the Game Boy Advance is host to some of the kings of RPGs, like specifically the Pokemon games. And yes, I think one of the Fire Emblems is also on there as well. That's more like an RTS, I guess, but it's still, it's there. Yeah, that one's pretty good. I would recommend playing that one just from my experience with it, and I really should play it again as an adult and actually see what the final boss is. I wonder if it is the Morbizak. I'm gonna look this up.
It's not the Morbizak. It was the prototype version that Tyrannosaurus made. That didn't end up being the one that he used in Metro Nui, from what I'm aware. But that one he sent to the island of Mount Nui for some reason. I don't remember the reason why. But yeah, that's basically the thing that they fight, the Karzani plant. And then eventually we got like the legitimate Karzani, but yeah. Is there anything else that we want to say about the Bionicle games? Aside, I mean, like,
has anybody played the GBA port of Heroes? Oh yeah,
I have on my phone.
Bionicle,
Yeah.
you said you have. How is that one? I've never even seen gameplay of that one. What's that one like?
Okay, so I can screen record it and send you it later. But
Yeah.
basically, it's like a top-down shooter, and like in the DS version, you play as a gray character. And in the first opening cutscene, you are a grayscale Jollar from Massive Light, and you basically wake up out of this Prodermis pool, and you walk towards this mask, and for some reason you become Tahu, which is really strange. But the rest of it is like you walk around these areas, you shoot a bunch of enemies. It's kind of like the DS one, but it's not first person. It's like top down, and you become all the Mata and the Anika. From my knowledge, aren't even in the game. You go from like Mata to Nuva, I think, and it's really
Bionicle Heroes
strange.
is just destined to be a weird outlier. I feel like what you have to say about that though is interesting. When you said like it's the Mata and the Nuva video games. I think other than the TV show, because I know the Bionicle fans are always like, oh, the worst thing that happened in the community is we didn't get a TV show, and I tend to agree with that. As we really should have got a TV show, but I feel like the video games really just kind of missed the mark of what Bionicle actually is. Like there was like a
They really did. It's
like a
just like, let's make
disconnect.
it a fun arcadey experience. Let's do this thing. They're robots. Who cares? Blah
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah, it kind of seems because like the movies. I mean, there can be an argument that the movies missed the mark, but I feel like the movies at least had like the essence of Bionicle in them. Like they knew enough of what was
Yeah.
going on, even though
Yeah,
there's some like
there's some miscommunication between these different marketing teams, I think.
yeah, but like the movies are like they're good enough is where I'm going with that. Like they're
Yeah.
passable. I think they're fine. The video games just they're kind of just like their own thing for the most part. Like what is even happening?
Absolutely. Yeah, you cannot get a single stink of lore from any of the games.
Yep. I think you can play almost all of them on the GameCube, can't you? Like because there's
Yeah, yes,
only
if you have it's like this add-on for the GameCube, and I actually own it, and that's how I used to play those.
yeah the
is
Game
I
Boy
would have
player.
copies and pop them in there.
Yeah, the Game Boy player. I got one of those too. Because I think the only one you can't play on the GameCube is like Heroes for DS, right? Other than that, there was only 2 console games, wasn't there?
Yeah, from what I know, only 2 console
There's
games.
2
Which is,
console and 5 Game Boy Advance games, and both console games are on the GameCube. So I guess the GameCube is the premier Bionicle system for all the diehard Bionicle fans out there.
I mean, that makes sense. It looks like a literal Lego piece.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man.
Do we close this out by talking about MNOG?
Oh yes, MNOG. I
Yeah.
had so much nostalgia for the Templar animation style.
Yeah, I think what really goes to show with that game was that we just talked about 2 console games, a bunch of Game Boy games, and a DS game, and not one of them hold the candle to that Flash game that you can play for free. Like
Yeah,
in terms of like lore and stuff.
That's the grand conclusion to everything we just said comes to that.
Yeah, like it's actually kind of remarkable. I've replayed it like a crap ton of times, and I want to replay it again eventually. It's just like it's literally like a perfect entry level kind of anything. Like I mean, of course, like as a veteran fan, like it's fun to replay it. But like if you want to get someone into Bionicle, that is probably the easiest way to kind of like do it without like totally overwhelming them with a bunch of crazy information. Is just to
Oh, yeah.
start them off with
But
MNOG.
also, the best thing about it is the mystery. Going into it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
There are 2 ways to get a new person into Bionicle.
Mm-hmm.
Set them up with MNOG, and give them one of your copious extra Rakshi.
Yes. Easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
every and Rakshi. I think like have like 2 of the brown ones, probably like 4 blue ones. It's everyone's got like a whole army of Rakshi.
Yep.
Yeah. No, like, but no, that game was fun. I mean, like, it was literally just a game where you just have to make progress by like solving a puzzle or picking something up from a certain location to activate the next thing. It was very basic in that regard, but again, like the vibe, like the soundtrack is good. Like it's got the thing what Heroes has going on, where it has the vibe, it has the soundtrack, and the stylized 2D form works very, very well. Like the designs are great. The animation can be great at times, and then sometimes it's a little bit choppy. But again, like it's just a Flash game from like 2001, which I would say it's like ahead of its time to a certain degree.
I would say that like the choppiness is kind of charming though when you look at
It is, yeah.
as a product of its time. As in, if it came out today and it was choppy, I'd be like, oh my god, that's disgusting. But since it came out from in 2001, I'm like, it's pretty good. I mean, it's charming because it's charming in the way that people find like VHS charming, where they're like, yeah, it crackles and it has some graininess sometimes. Ah, it's a VHS. What are you gonna do? I'm like, it's a Flash game from 2001. It's got some choppiness. Sometimes it stutters, but it's authentic. That's just what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And there's some people in the community that are, I don't know what their names are, but I think they're basically remastering MNOG to fix the either grammar mistakes, the outdated terms, and also the graphical errors as well. Because sometimes in some portions, like someone has like the wrong color feet or someone has like the wrong color mask or something, and they're enhancing the audio too, I think, which is pretty cool. Be a good way to revisit it. But yeah, I don't have too much to say about MNOG just because like it's very limited gameplay wise. But again, like it's just a perfect little game. I don't know what else to say.
Charming point and click adventure. It's
A little package.
It's hilarious that it's the best that Bionicle has to offer, whereas video games are concerned. Just looking at it in what it is, and then you realize, oh, it's literally a free game that's a Flash game that never came out physically, and I don't know. It's a really interesting concept. I will say that there is one thing about MNOG that bothers me. You ready for this? This is the Xav hot take.
Yeah, here we go.
I despise how the Picari looks in that game. I don't think it looks anything like the actual Picari, and that's like the only.
It looks kind of like Hopper's mask.
And considering that that's my only complaint about MNOG, and
that's pretty damn good.
and I'm very opinionated where Bionicle is concerned in general. I mean, I'm the hot take king. That fares pretty well for MNOG. I was not smart enough to play it when I was little. I definitely remember trying it, getting stuck in Gakoro.
Oh yeah.
Not knowing what to do and then quitting.
Was it like Gakoro with like the balance?
No, it was like the
like
first area.
puzzle.
You had to like find a gear or something in the water, and I was just too stupid to find it. And
Damn.
just gave up.
Yeah, that's like one of the easiest parts of the game too.
Oh, I know,
Damn.
but we're talking about me from like it was on Bionicle's website for a long time, right? You're talking about when I was like 4 in 2002, and I was playing it. And...
It was there up until 2004 or 5, I think. Yeah, because I know in 2006 they only had MNOG 2 on there, and I was like, where'd the first one?
Doesn't MNOG 2 have like a game-breaking bug in it?
Yeah, I guess since we're still talking about video games, but like I don't really like MNOG 2. I think it's a big downgrade from MNOG 1. Like the cutscenes are still fine and all that. It's just the actual gameplay. The point and click, like when you point and clicked in the first one, you would quite literally just jump to the next location. I think for a game, especially a point and click one, that's fine. But with the other one, like you would like click to a place and then you would have to watch Holly slowly run to it very, very slowly. And it was just very like not as good to play.
Yeah, it didn't have that fluidness of like Pajama Sam or something that came out around like the same time where you would click. If anybody's familiar with Pajama Sam, that's one of those 90s point and click games. It's the same developer as Putt Putt. You'd get them in like cereal boxes back then.
Yeah.
Back when we would get actual video games in cereal boxes. Crazy to think of. And, Sam would have a really fluid walk animation, or he'd do something that would get him over to the other side of the screen really quickly. I guess MNOG 2 doesn't have that, with Hallie slowly, like, waltzing over to the next screen.
Yeah, it's cool how it ties into the Mask of Light film, because you do play the Coley match from the film, and you do go to Takoro when it gets destroyed by the Rakshi, and that's basically how the game ends. But like those parts were cool, and it was cool seeing those events kind of happen in MNOG form, especially like seeing like how different Miramax took Bionicle and the Flash games did. But yeah, MNOG 1 goated, MNOG 2 not goated. I think I prefer some of the GBA games over MNOG 2 actually. But yeah, the tier list, the top 2 is definitely like MNOG and then Heroes, and everything else is kind of like
It's
you know,
there.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah,
It sure is.
that's
there.
how it goes.
We are forgetting 2 more Bionicle video games.
Oh boy.
I hate to do this to you, Ben. I hate to do this to you, but I gotta do this to you.
The G2 ones?
Yeah, the G2.
Well, those ones are app
Oh,
games.
yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
I
like-
used to have
yeah.
those on my tablet.
I never
They
had the
are-
2016 one. I had the 2015 one. 2015 one was okay, but it was just like the brain rot, like endless waves of enemies, and
It
then
absolutely is.
You're
Not
just
much
like
to talk
fighting
about,
skull
but-
spiders, and then you like fight loss, and then you go back to fighting more skull spiders.
yep, that was the whole game. I wonder why
I-
G2 never took off, guys.
I remember I remember playing that
Power!
game.
That's why.
sitting in the dentist's office, being like, "Is that it?"
I think
I
when I
don't even
first played the
remember what
game, I don't
the-
even think Lord of Skull
Nah,
Spiders was
Minion
even
Rush is
in
where it
it.
was at.
Like for the first while, because Akimu was in the game later. I think when they added Akimu, they added Lord of Skull Spiders. Like,
The Lord is good spiders.
yeah.
I don't remember what the Mask of Control one was, but I remember it being somehow worse
Yeah,
than
that one didn't look good.
the Mask of Creation one. Like I remember having them both, playing Mask of Control and being like, "This sucks," and then going back to Mask of Creation. Like that's how little.
No one misses Mask
The-
of Control.
The mobile games from G2. Oh,
The first one's okay, just because it's like, okay, brain rot, endless brain rot. Okay, that's fine. The other one's just like brain rot, but not fun. So, no, thank you.
yeah. At least like Mask of Creation was like a fun like. It literally is the I'm waiting in the dentist office game.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and those have a place in the pantheon of video games. Not a significant place, but a place.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think we'll end it there. I think that's a good spot to end it. This is the longest Toa Talk so far at an hour and a half. Maybe we'll break 2 hours or 3 hours at some point. I'm sure we will at some point. But thank you all for watching. Thank you, Bionabot, for joining us today. And
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me on, guys.
yeah, no. Apologies about the scheduling conflicts. Some things got out of hand, but we finally did it, so that's all that matters. But again, thank you for
We did
watching. And thank you for listening. See you guys next week.
Ciao.
Ciao.